Have you noticed that being alone doesn't really exist anymore? Not physically alone, digitally alone. Because not that long ago, we just sat by ourselves in a room. You were actually by yourself. No notifications, no messages, no endless stream of content, no algorithms competing for your attention. Just you, your own thoughts. Today, that's becoming surprisingly rare. In fact, I think one of the biggest changes in modern life isn't technology itself. It's that we're quietly not able to be alone, and most people haven't even noticed it's happening. Think about it. When was the last time you stood and did absolutely nothing? No phone, no scrolling, no checking email, no texting, no news, no social media. Just standing there. Not a lot of people can answer that. It wasn't last week, it wasn't today, it wasn't months ago, because somewhere along the way, every empty moment became occupied. Waiting became scrolling, boredom became content, silence became noise. And now we've reached a point where many people feel uncomfortable the second nothing is happening. That's new. Historically, humans spent enormous amounts of time alone with their thoughts, walking, fishing, driving, working, sitting, waiting, thinking. There were long stretches of mental space. Now, those spaces are disappearing. The second we wake up, we're connected. Before our feet hit the floor, many people check their phones. Messages, news, weather, notifications, social media, work, emails, group chats, maybe games. The day hasn't even started yet, and our minds are already crowded. And that continues all day long. Think about driving. When I was younger, people drove in silence all the time. Maybe there was music, maybe there wasn't. Today, many people can't make it 10 minutes without stimulation. Podcasts, autobiographies, books, YouTube, phone calls, navigation, voices. Something is always filling the space. And if that sounds normal, that's actually the point. We've normalized constant input. We've normalized never being mentally alone. But what happens when every spare second gets filled? What happens when there's never any quiet? I think that's where some of our modern problems begin, because solitude isn't the same thing as loneliness. People confuse those two things. Loneliness is feeling disconnected. Solitude is being alone by choice. And throughout history, solitude was incredibly valuable. That's where reflection happened. That's where ideas formed. That's where people processed emotions. That's where creativity lived. That's where self-awareness developed. You can't really hear yourself if something else is always talking. And today, something is always talking. An app, a video, a podcast, a notification on, a headline, an influencer, an algorithm. Someone always wants your attention. Someone always wants another click. Someone always wants another minute. And eventually, that changes us. When was the last time you sat in a restaurant and looked around? Not at your table, no, the entire room. 20 years ago, people were talking. Today, you'll often see couples looking at phones, families looking at phones, kids looking at tablets, people waiting for food looking at phones, people sitting alone looking at phones. We can be sitting 3 feet from another human being and still be somewhere else entirely. The strange thing is that most of us barely notice anymore. It has become so normal. Here's another test. This sounds ridiculous, but try it. Leave your phone in another room. Then go to the bathroom. Don't bring it. For a surprising number of people, that actually feels uncomfortable. You suddenly feel disconnected. You wonder if you're missing something. You reach for a device that isn't there. That moment tells you deeply connected we become. Even exercise used to be one of the last places people were alone with their thoughts. Now it's music, podcasts, videos, texts between sets, notifications between exercises. Even our quiet activities aren't quiet anymore. And then there's boredom. Remember boredom? People talk about boredom like it was a bad thing. But boredom served a purpose. Boredom forced the brain to wander. Boredom created imagination. Boredom encouraged creativity. Boredom pushed people to think. As kids, we stared out the cars, the windows. We watched clouds. We wandered around the neighborhood. We made things up. We daydreamed. Today's kids rarely experience that kind of boredom because stimulation is always one tap away. The second boredom appears, content appears. The second silence appears, noise appears. The second we're alone, something rushes in to fill that space. And maybe that's why so many people feel mentally exhausted. People say they're overwhelmed, distracted, unable to focus, unable to relax, unable to sit still. But then we spend every waking moment connected to information. It's almost like we're trying to solve overload by adding more overload. We're trying to solve noise with more noise. And somehow we're surprised when we still feel like we have relationships unhinged. Years ago, if someone wasn't available, they simply weren't available. You talk later. Now, everyone is reachable all the time. And being reachable all the time has created a strange kind of pressure. People expect response faster, expect availability, expect engagement, expect attention. We become more connected than ever in this generation and history. Yet many people report feeling mentally exhausted. Connection has benefits, but constant connection has costs. And one of those costs, most of us don't really realize all the time, is solitude, sleep, protection. Think about how many people fall asleep while consuming content, videos, podcasts, Netflix, streaming, social media. The last voice they hear before they go to sleep often isn't the thoughts of their own, it's someone else's. The day begins connected. The day ends connected. And in between, we're surrounded by a constant stream of information. Always available, always updating, always refreshing, always on. And maybe the scariest possibility isn't the technology itself that's changing us. The scariest possibility is that many of us no longer remember what interrupted thought even feels like. Not 10 seconds, not 30 seconds, an hour, a full hour with nothing demanding our attention. No alerts, no videos, no messages, no scrolling. Just you. Just you.